What if two of the most popular airlines in America gave you completely different experiences on the same day? One claims to be reliable and comfortable, while the other is often called the best airline in the country. New, click to edit. Today I decided to put them head to head by flying both of them and testing everything I possibly could. From the airport check-in to the seats, entertainment, food, and overall service, I wanted to see which airline actually deserves the top spot. And trust me, the final result might surprise you. So the journey started early in the morning when I arrived at the airport for the first flight of the day. The airline I was flying first was one I had only flown once before. That previous experience was decent, but as we all know, airline experiences can change quickly. Some flights are amazing while others can be frustrating, so I was curious to see what today's flight would be like. After walking into the airport, I headed straight toward the self-service check-in kiosks. These machines usually save a lot of time compared to waiting in line for an agent. All I had to do was enter my booking details, confirm my passport, and within a few seconds my boarding pass printed out. The process was surprisingly fast and smooth, which is always a good sign at the beginning of a travel day. Even better, I managed to get a window seat, which is always my preferred choice when flying. With the boarding pass in hand, the next step was airport security. Normally this airport can be extremely busy, especially for international flights, and sometimes the security process can take a long time. But this time things moved incredibly fast. Within just a few minutes I was already through security and heading toward the departure gates. However, there was one issue that I had noticed earlier when booking the ticket. The flight was supposed to be operated by a medium-sized aircraft, which is unusual for such a short flight. Usually airlines use much smaller planes for routes like this, so I was interested to see if the aircraft would actually be as comfortable as advertised. Since there was still some time before boarding started, I decided to visit the airport lounge. Lounges can sometimes be one of the best parts of the airport experience, offering comfortable seating, food, drinks, and a quiet place to relax before the flight. Unfortunately, this particular lounge was smaller than expected. The food options were limited and the space felt a bit cramped. Although the staff were friendly and the food tasted decent, the lounge lacked natural lighting and didn't feel very relaxing overall. After spending some time there, it was finally time to head to the gate. Unfortunately, just as I arrived, the gate had been changed. It wasn't a huge issue because the new gate was nearby, but it did add a bit of confusion during boarding. Once the boarding process finally started, it took quite a while for passengers to get onto the plane. Eventually I stepped on board and walked through the cabin to find my seat. The seat itself looked fairly comfortable at first glance. The cushion felt soft, the headrest was supportive, and the legroom was actually better than expected for an economy seat. After settling in, I started exploring the area around the seat. There was a decent-sized tray table, storage pockets for personal items, and the usual safety information. But then something unexpected happened. The flight ended up being delayed because the captain hadn't arrived yet. This was a very unusual situation. The entire crew was already on board, including the co-pilot, but the main pilot was missing. Passengers sat waiting in their seats while the crew tried to figure out what was going on. What was supposed to be a short delay eventually turned into nearly an hour. Apparently the pilot had accidentally gone to the wrong terminal, which caused the entire flight to be held up. Eventually the pilot arrived, preparations were completed, and the plane finally pushed back from the gate. Once we were in the air, the flight itself was fairly smooth. However, there were a few small disappointments. The aircraft didn't have built-in screens for entertainment, and passengers had to connect to the airline's onboard Wi-Fi system to watch anything. Unfortunately, the actual internet connection required an extra fee, and the free entertainment selection was quite limited. Another surprise was the lack of snacks during the flight. On many short flights, airlines usually offer at least a small snack along with drinks. On this flight, only water was provided, which felt a bit underwhelming compared to what many passengers expect nowadays. Despite those issues, the seat comfort and legroom were actually quite decent, especially for a flight lasting about an hour. By the time we landed, I had a pretty good understanding of how the first airline performed overall. But the real test wasn't over yet. The next part of the journey involved flying on another major airline to see how it compared. After landing and transferring through the airport, I checked in for the second flight. The check-in process was once again quick and simple using the kiosk machines, and thankfully I managed to get another window seat. This time the airport had multiple lounges available, and exploring them was a much better experience. One lounge had stylish interiors and comfortable seating, while another offered a wide variety of hot meals, snacks, and desserts. The overall atmosphere felt much more spacious and relaxing compared to the first lounge. Eventually it was time to head to the gate for the second flight. Boarding began slightly later than scheduled, but the delay was relatively minor. Once on board, the difference in the cabin experience became noticeable right away. The seat design felt modern and comfortable, and there were several useful features available to passengers. Each seat had a personal entertainment screen along with a USB charging port and a power outlet. The aircraft also offered free Wi-Fi, allowing passengers to browse the internet, watch videos, and stay connected throughout the flight. When the plane reached cruising altitude, the crew began distributing snacks and drinks. There were multiple snack options available, which was a nice improvement compared to the first flight. The entertainment system also had a large selection of movies, TV shows, live channels, and music, making the flight feel much more enjoyable. Although the legroom was slightly tighter than on the first airline, the overall comfort and onboard experience felt more complete. The combination of free Wi-Fi, entertainment screens, and better snack service made the flight feel more premium even though it was still in economy class. By the time the aircraft landed, it was clear that both airlines had their strengths and weaknesses. One offered better seat space, while the other provided superior entertainment and connectivity. But when looking at the overall experience from start to finish, one airline clearly delivered a slightly better journey. Travel experiences can vary from flight to flight, but comparing airlines like this helps reveal which one consistently provides better comfort, service, and reliability. If you enjoyed this comparison and want to see more travel experiences, airline reviews, and aviation adventures from around the world, make sure to support the channel and stay tuned for the next video.